There were no screams when New Jakarta fell. Only one last message. Tell them we remember. No one truly knows when Earth died. Some say it ended the moment the Vanduul ascendancy split the moon in half with a gravity hammer. Others mark the day Solnet went dark and 23 billion voices fell silent in the span of 3 hours. Whatever date history chooses, it's irrelevant now. What matters is what lived. Far beyond the broken orbit of Earth, on the jagged edge of the Orion expanse, there floated what was left of a people once called human. Not a fleet, not a nation, just survivors, drifting in the shadow of extinction. Their bones wore the silence of loss. Their ships ran on whispers. Their stories were spoken like prayers no god had answered. Among them was a girl born aboard Refuge 9, the last hospital cradle station that had once orbited Saturn before being exiled like the rest. She was delivered during a blackout in the hydroponics corridor, her first breath shared with a leaking oxygen tank and the steady thrum of emergency generators. Her name was Alara Khan. Now, 27 years later, she was Commander Khan, last battle strategist of the forgotten Earthborn resistance. Her eyes held the cold clarity of vacuum. Her voice, when she used it, could quiet a bridge with a glance. But even she could not change what the galaxy had become. The Vanduul ascendancy ruled like dark gods. 1,000,000 star systems bent their knees under the weight of their empire. Entire species reduced to labor, memory, or dust. Their ships did not land. They consumed. And Earth had been their first feast. Humanity, once counted in billions, now numbered fewer than 300,000, scattered across dead stations, outlaw moons, and drifting fleets. Some called them ghosts, others vermin. But to Alara, they were her people. She stood now on the war deck of the Remnant-class cruiser Vigil, watching as sensor relays mapped the ruins of the Epsilon Verge enclave, once a thriving outpost that had sent out beacons of unity and hope. Now, its solar arrays spun lifeless, cradling charred hulls and orphaned escape pods. Another silence, another grave. Alara, came the voice of Idris Harlan, her chief engineer and oldest friend, through the comm. The recon drones pulled partial data. Epsilon wasn't just wiped, it was a message. Look. A holla bloomed above the command dais. Static first. Then, a Vanduul transmission, heavily modulated, but unmistakably arrogant. To the scattered remnants of Earth, you are not mourners. You are ashes. Drift as you wish. You will not rise. The sky belongs to the ascendancy. Idris's jaw tightened. They're not even trying to hide anymore. They never needed to, Alara whispered. The bridge fell into silence again. But this time, it was different. Heavier, more human. She knew what came next. The people would cry for retaliation, for meaning, for something to break the endless pattern of loss. But Alara Khan had seen the truth. They weren't ready. Not yet. Not with half their fleet using salvaged drives and barely functioning life support. Not while the inner colonies still believed Earth was myth and humanity a failed whisper. Prepare a response, she said finally. Idris frowned. What kind of response? She turned toward the viewport, where stars swam in black silence. Her eyes drifted to a long-dead human satellite, still blinking out its coded distress calls to a planet that no longer listened. A memory, she said. Something the Vanduul forgot to fear. She walked the length of the bridge slowly, fingers brushing the old brass emblem affixed to the central pillar. The eagle and olive branch of the Terran Union, cracked and fading. She remembered her mother's voice, barely a breath, whispering. Before she died, we are the children of fire. Don't let the stars forget. Alara, Idris called again, softer. What are we doing? She paused. Then we find them all. Every outpost, every survivor. We remind them who we are. We don't mourn quietly, we burn, until the sky remembers our name. And somewhere, far beyond their reach, in the obsidian halls of a Vandal Dreadforge, a living star map pulsed red over Saul's remains. A whisper echoed through the ranks of the Ascendancy war chiefs. A human warband has breached the verge. A signal was sent. It carries the old Earth code. Their reply was simple. Begin cleansing protocols. No remnants, but it was already too late. The signal had reached the dark, and the stars, once silent, began to listen. Alara Khan didn't sleep that cycle. The signal had been sent, but now came the reckoning and the waiting. On board the vigil, the air had grown tense. Every corridor held hushed conversations. Every hand moved with purpose. These weren't just crew anymore. They were survivors daring to believe in something more dangerous than survival. Hope, and hope made. People reckless. Alara stood in the ship's observation cradle, a chamber once meant for scientific readings, but now repurposed for meditation. Through its armored dome, she watched a dying star collapse into itself, a stellar death not unlike her species. Beautiful, violent, forgotten. Idris's voice pulled her back. "We decrypted the last logs from Epsilon Verge," he said, stepping beside her, holding a battered data slate. His tone was hollow, like a man already grieving what he was about to say. There was a family, human from the Rothery. Crescent. Traders. They saw the Vandal ships before the station was hit. Describe a new class of hunter vessel. Organic weave. Shadow drives. No warp trail. "That's impossible," Alara said. "I thought so too," he said. "But they called it the Void Fang. Said it moved like it knew where the humans were before they did." Alara's eyes narrowed. "It's not just conquest anymore. They're hunting us for sport." Idris nodded. "Or extinction." The words lingered like frost in the chamber. The Vandal weren't just enforcing their dominance. They were erasing humanity from the record. And worse, they were adapting. She turned from the view. "How many got out of Epsilon?" 4 transports. 1 made it to the drift. The rest were picked off mid-warp. He hesitated. "One of them carried school children. They didn't have weapons. They didn't even get a warning." Something in Alara cracked. Her throat went dry. "Send a memorial code to all systems. Let them know the names." "They don't have names, Alara. The record's burned with the station." She looked up, voice low and cold. "Then we remember them anyway. Because forgetting, that's how it all ends." The Void Fang appeared 3 days later. It didn't decloak. It didn't announce itself. It simply was, emerging from null space in a rift of black energy that bent nearby asteroids into imploding spirals. The Vigil's forward array caught it too late. One of their scout craft was ripped in half before it could finish its distress. Ping. The bridge of the Vigil went red. "Contact. 5 clicks out," shouted Pilot Munich. "Massive displacement field. It's jamming our targeting." The alien ship looked like a wound in the stars, blacker than the void itself, laced with pulsating red veins and fractal tendrils that coiled like living things. The Void Fang was not shaped like a vessel. It was shaped like a predator, curved, lean, hungry. "Bring up the shields," Alara snapped. "Get us moving." "Shields are responding," Idris called. "But slow, it's suppressing our energy relays." As systems flickered and hull plating groaned, Alara felt the weight of every soul aboard pressed down on her. This wasn't a battle. It was an execution. "Weapons ready?" "Plasma lances 1 and 3. 4 is fried. Missiles might not track under this jamming. Fire anyway. Aim for its emitter nodes. Make it feel us." The Vigil lit up. The dark green-blue bolts of plasma lanced across the void, some hitting, others dissipating in the gravitic haze that cloaked the Void Fang. The Vandal ship absorbed most impacts without flinching. A living thing, adapting, learning. Then it responded. A single lance of black energy carved through the void, striking the Vigil's flank. Decks shook. Consoles burst. Fires erupted. Along the secondary bulkhead, hull breach, sections C and D. Idris shouted, "We've lost 30. 30. Gone in an instant. Not soldiers, not warriors, just human lives." Alara gripped the rail until her knuckles cracked. Divert. Auxiliary power. Get me a firing solution on its eye, whatever that core is pulsing in the front. Too much scatter. Do it manually, she hissed. She climbed into the auxiliary gunnery station herself, eyes locked on the Predator. Its front core glowed like a heartbeat, red and slow. Mocking. She targeted it manually, ignoring the targeting reticle, ignoring the shaking metal under her boots, ignoring the scream of the dying behind the bulkhead. She fired. The blast struck home. The Void Fang flinched, its skin rippling. Not destroyed, but wounded. It turned. Then, inexplicably, it retreated. Alara stared after it, breath ragged. The bridge was chaos behind her. Medical teams were dragging burned crew from ruptured bays. People sobbed. Systems flickered. And, through it all, she heard one word echo in her skull. Why? Why did it retreat? Later that night, in the wrecked silence of the war room, Alara replayed the footage. There, just before the Void Fang turned, its scanners focused not on the weapons, not on the engines, but on the Terran emblem stitched to her uniform, the old Earth insignia. And for the first time in decades, a Vandal ship blinked. "They remember us," she whispered. "They remember Earth." Idris leaned beside her, bruised and tired. Then why didn't they kill us? Alara's eyes went dark. Because they're afraid of what comes next. The Void Fang vanished, but its wound lingered. For the first time in nearly a generation, a human ship had struck a Vandal hunter and lived to speak of it. Not a victory. Not yet, but something more dangerous. A story. And in the outer belts of the Orion Verge, stories spread faster than light. Alara Khan stood in the Vigil's inner core, staring at the star map as Idris stitched a new route through the Loan Drift. Their damage was patched, barely, but their spirit, that stubborn, dangerous human thing, had begun to smolder. "I broadcast the full encounter," Idris said, tapping a node. "Encrypted in Legacy Earth code. Took the signal 3 days to clear the scatter zone, but we got responses." Alara's eyes flicked up. From who? He pulled open the return channel logs. There weren't many, but each was impossible. "This is Rourke of the Freebound. Thought Earth died. Seems it didn't. Coordinates locked. Coming in fast. Cradle Station 5. We remember New Jakarta. Ravana's spear reporting from dark space. You call, we bleed. Ships. Crews. Ghosts. Names she had only read in fragments of dead code and fading memory banks. They were answering. Not because they thought they could win, but because someone, Alara, had reminded them they were not alone. She inhaled. Deep. Grounded. Then she gave the first real order in what felt like a lifetime. "Bring them here. All of them. We start building." They met in the black. Over the graveyard world of Athes 9, long since glassed by the Vandal, a small fleet assembled. Human ships, none whole, none gleaming, limped into orbit like battered wolves returning to a den. Some were cargo haulers retrofitted with mining lasers. Others were half-dead warships reanimated by sheer stubbornness. And in their cores, beat the same fire. Rourke stepped off his war frigate Daggerfall, his armor scratched to hell, his voice like broken gravel. "You're either mad or myth, Commander Khan. Either way, I'm in." Beside him, a cloaked woman removed her helmet. Mila Voss once commander of the Phoenix Wing, long presumed dead in the fall of Luna's bastion. "I watched Earth burn," she said. "I've been waiting 20 years for someone to say it. Wasn't the end." They formed a circle in the ancient ruins of a pre-collapse relay station orbiting Athens. 12 captains. No admirals. No nations. Just the last breath of Earth fury. Ilara stood at the center. "They believe we are." "Ghosts," she said. "Dust. Remnants to be swept into history." "They're not wrong," Mila murmured. Ilara nodded. "But we are human ghosts, and humans remember. We rebuild. And when the stars forget who we are." She looked up at them. Not commanders, not legends, just survivors. "We. Remind them." She placed a relic onto the center of the table. A charred dog tag etched with the emblem of Earth's last defense force. Her mother's. Idris stepped forward, revealing a cracked AI core no larger than a fist. "Stolen from the wreck of the Artemis Spire," he said. "It's not much, but it holds every known ship schematic from the Terran resistance, including the blueprints for Project Skybreaker." Gasps filled the chamber. Skybreaker was a myth, someone whispered. "No," Ilara said. "It was a last resort Earth never got to build. A planetary assault corvette designed to burn through dreadnoughts. We have the skeletons. We have the AI cores. We have you." She paused. "What we don't have is time." The next weeks were madness. In hidden docks under the ruins of Athens, the humans began to weld history back together. Fusion cores were reignited. Hulls were stitched from salvage and sorrow. And on every plate, every control panel, every flight seat, a name was carved. Not the name of the ship, but the names of the fallen. The crew of Epsilon Verge, the children of the Rothery Crescent, the dead of Luna Bastion, the broken of soul. The enemy would forget them no longer. Idris pushed beyond his own limits, wiring ancient AI matrices with jury-rigged Vanduul tech. Mela trained pilots from scratch. Rourke built kill squads from pirates and refugees, teaching them how to make even a garbage hauler bleed in war. And Ilara, she was everywhere. A commander. A myth. A scar given breath. At night, when silence returned, she knelt in the dark, listening to the old Earth transmissions stored in the IS fading memory. Children laughing. A mother singing. Lullabies in Urdu. The hum of wind through ruined trees. They were echoes. And Ilara vowed they would never be silenced again. 1 month later, the first Skybreaker rose. She was jagged, unfinished, but alive. Cody name. Ashwing, named for the birds of soul that once flew through fire to birth there. Young. The humans stood in reverent silence as her engines ignited, casting light over a dead planet. Rourke exhaled. "She's not pretty. She doesn't need to be," Ilara whispered. "She just needs to remind the galaxy why it feared." Earth. Mila stepped up beside her. "So what now?" Ilara's jaw tightened. "Now, we send a message." The Ashwing didn't fly. It roared. From the shattered moons of Athens, its burn trail lit the void like a scream, a declaration that humanity was no longer hiding, no longer mourning. Its frame rattled with fury and welded memory. Every piece of her hull was etched with the forgotten. Orbital IDs, station codes, names of ships long turned to ash. Ilara stood at its command helm, the crew around her tense, bracing. Target. Vanduul Listening Post Sigma Rail 7, located at the edge of the Navari Gulf. It was not a fortress, not a capital, just a relay station, but it carried signals through 4 sectors, including the one that had broadcast the purge of Epsilon Verge. "This isn't a battle," she told them. "It's punctuation, a line drawn in fire. Enemy doesn't even know we're coming," Idris confirmed. "They've grown lazy." "Good," Mila said from Tactical. Complacency is a weakness they didn't program into us. The Ashwing decloaked at 30 clicks, close enough to trigger alarms, but far enough to strike. Vanduul defense drones stirred, forming a perimeter. But they were too late. The Skybreaker's spinal cannon, a modified sun-pulse rig cannibalized from 3 reactors, fired first. The beam hit the station's core with terrifying precision. For 1 second, it held. Then the station folded inward like wet paper in a hurricane of light. No survivors, no wreckage, just silence and memory. The Ashwing turned and vanished before the Vanduul could even scramble reinforcements. It was over in less than 8 minutes, but the galaxy felt it like a blade to the RIBS. Vanduul Station Sigma Rail 7 destroyed. Unidentified human warship sighted. Designation unknown. Broadcast carried ancient Earth code. A 101, we are not ashes. And across dark systems, across outlaw colonies, across embers of species long quieted under Vanduul chains. Whispers began to rise. They struck back. Humans are burning again. The sky remembers. The retaliation came swift and brutal. 12 days later, Cradle Station 5 was found in pieces. Scorched orbital rings, airlock chambers vented to black. Not a soul left breathing. Rourke's voice cracked over the fleet-wide channel. They executed children, left them lined along the viewing deck like trophies. This wasn't a raid. This was theater. Silence fell. Elara stood in the war hall, flanked by captains who looked more haunted than hardened. They want to scare us back into hiding, she said. They think we'll break, Idris muttered. They're wrong. Her voice rose, cold, certain, bleeding with fury. We burned one of their eyes out. They came for our hearts. But we are human. We do not forget. We carve their names. We carry their dead. And we answer. The fleet moved. No longer a ragtag assembly, now a knife. Honed by memory, Milavos began hit-and-run campaigns in the Darren Reach. Idris outfitted junk freighters with pulse mines and left them in warp lanes like buried teeth. And Elara, she drew a line through the stars, a path not of tactics but of names. Epsilon Verge, Rothery, Cradle 5, Luna Bastion. Each attack, each loss became a waypoint, a trajectory. They followed it back to the source. The Vanduul Forge Moon Karsala was a mobile construction world, a city-sized behemoth orbiting a fractured gas giant. It produced hunters, harvesters, and war engines, untouchable, indestructible. Until now, Idris laid the plan on the war table. We slip in under their refinery masking field. Milla's team cripples the outer relay. Rourke's dogs plant antimatter charges on the spine towers. We give the Ashwing one shot, a full core vent into their fusion matrix. And if it fails? Someone asked. Elara answered, quiet but clear. Then we die giving the next ones a path through the smoke. They launched at Burnlight. Ships fanned across the outer ring like sparks against the dying eye of the Forge moon. Alarms rang out as Vanduul turrets turned inward. Explosions rippled across the defensive spine. Milla's in, Idris confirmed. Charge windows open. Rourke? Elara asked. Static. Then, Tower 3's hot. Setting the heartburn now. We'll be late to dinner. She closed her eyes. Then opened them again, steel and sorrow. Bring us in. No stealth. Let them see. The Ashwing roared toward the core. They met resistance. Vanduul strikers, sleek, curved terrors of flesh metal and plasma, swarmed them. Shields screamed. Hulls tore. One of their escort frigates, Gallows Rest, detonated in a flash of fire and bone. Inside the Ashwing, damage reports flooded in. Fires on decks 2 through 6. Hull breach near the cannon feed. Oxygen loss. But the cannon was charged. "Target locked," Idris shouted. "Fire," Alara said. The beam tore through the moon's atmospheric processing column, puncturing the containment field and hitting the fusion heart beneath. Karsala burned. A moon screaming like a god struck through the lungs. Entire fabrication cores imploded. Dreadnought embryos cracked. Mid-growth systems blinked out. They'd done it. They'd burned the source. But at a cost. As they fled the blast radius, 2 ships didn't make it. Vulture's grin, Ember wake, and Mila's channel was silent. Idris tried again. Phoenix wing respond. Alara waited. Then, finally, crackling static, her voice. "Buy us 30 seconds. I'll light the door behind you." Rourke cursed. "Mila," she cut him off. "Tell them I remembered. Tell them Luna wasn't for nothing." Then the Ember wake detonated, wiping out the pursuing Vanduul wing and opening the corridor for the rest of the fleet to escape. A sacrifice. A flame. In the aftermath, Alara stood on the shattered viewing deck of the Ashwing, watching Karsala's ruins spin across the void. "They're going to bring everything now," Idris said, voice hollow. She didn't look at him. "I know. They'll wipe out the stars to bury us." She nodded slowly. "Then we teach them how humans dig. Out from under stars." The stars burned quieter after Karsala fell. Not out of peace, but calculation. The Vanduul were regrouping, rearranging. The hive had been stung. Now it prepared to devour. Alara Khan stood at the edge of the Cum's cradle aboard the Ashwing, arms crossed, eyes distant. Mila Voss was gone. 72 lives lost. And yet, a Forge Moon was dead. Rourke limped into the chamber, his voice rough with grief and smoke. Our network's buzzing. 6 slave colonies just revolted. And a dozen systems that never said a word before. They're flying Earth's old distress colors. She didn't smile. Couldn't. That won't save them when the Vanduul come. "It might not be about saving," he said. "Might just be about saying we were here." That, at least, felt true. Then Idris stormed in, breathless, holding a core fragment and a gloss lock. "Alara, we found something." The wreckage of Karsala had been more than steel and gore. Within the debris, their scavenger drones had pulled a relic from the abyss, one the Vanduul never meant anyone to see. It was Terran. An ancient transmission node, long dormant. Buried inside, a locked Earth-coded directive marked Solis 0. Alara and Idris cracked it together, surrounded by emergency lanterns in the darkened AI bay. The message flickered to life. A woman's face, ash-skinned, uniformed in pre-fall. Command robes appeared. "This is Admiral Khan, Terran High Command, Sol Defense Grid. If you're seeing this..." "Earth has fallen." Alara froze. Her breath left her lungs like a punctured hull. They came too fast. "We held the line at Europa, at Titan, at the belt. But it was never going to be enough. So we did what humans do. We made the impossible real." The screen shifted to blueprints, star maps, a facility buried beneath Earth's crust. Final contingency. Project Firewalk. Idris whispered the name like a myth. "We buried it under the Himalayas. Shielded in plasma bedrock. It contains an AI, Sentinel Dawn, with the sum total of Terran science, defense protocols, and a weapon we never dared test. If you're still out there, awaken it." The feed glitched, then returned, this time with a final whisper. "Find Earth, bring back the fire." And the screen went black. They stood in silence. Then Alara, voice hollow, "Admiral Khan." Idris turned to her, realization dawning. "Alara, that was my grandmother," she confirmed. The silence thickened. "Project Firewalk," Idris said. "If it's real, it is. Then we need to go back." Alara looked down at the star map. "Sol, Dark, unspoken, redlined for 3 decades. Earth is suicide, Rourke said from the doorway. The Vandal didn't just hit. They court it. Their godships still orbit the bones. Anything that moves gets atomized before it blinks. And if we don't go? Alara asked. Then we die louder, I guess. She looked around the dimly lit chamber. They were bleeding, fractured, haunted. But they were also closer than ever to something more than revenge. They were close to a weapon and to a legacy. Within a cycle, the fleet mobilized. 6 ships, half fuel, minimal shields. But they carried something the Vandal would never understand. Memory. They ghosted across the fringe lanes, slipped past drone scouts. Rode. Radiation burst through Forbidden's warp bands. They returned to Sol. It was unrecognizable. Earth hung like a wound, cracked and scorched. Its atmosphere shredded. Megastructures orbited like vultures, leaking plasma and cold death. And yet, beneath the smog and fire, they found it. The Himalayan cradle still buried, still warm, shielded by a pre-fall defense net that had somehow evaded Vandal scans, cloaked in tectonic magnetic anomalies. They landed, breached the outer layers, navigated through corridors untouched. For 30 years, until they found it, a door, etched with one word, Firewalk. Alara stepped forward, hand trembling. She placed her palm on the activation pad. The air shifted. The door groaned open. The room inside pulsed with dormant energy. Glass walls, crystalline nodes, reactors the size of buildings. And at the center, a containment sphere humming with slow, rhythmic breath. Is that the AI? Rourke asked. No, Idris whispered. That's the core of it, the soul. The lights flared. A voice, clear, genderless, and impossibly human, echoed across the chamber. Humanity, detected. Command lineage. Con, activation. Protocol, Sentinel Dawn, online. The lights became stars, and the room shifted into a memory Earth had sealed in silence. Welcome home. The AI, I didn't ask who won. It asked who remembered. The chamber holding Sentinel Dawn pulsed like a heart reborn. For the first time in 3 decades, the silence beneath Earth broke, and humanity's ghost rose, not in grief, but in fury. Alara Kayan stood beneath the core's glow, her breath held hostage by the weight of generations. A single step forward, and the past would become present, and present, fire. The AI's voice echoed again. Command acknowledged. Firewalk contingency ready. Idris stepped forward, eyes wide as data cascaded across the crystalline terminals. Around them, it's rewriting subspace maps in real time. Alara, this thing isn't just a defense grid. It's rewriting reality. Clarify, she said, her voice steady despite the quake in her chest. He turned a screen toward her. Project Firewalk isn't a weapon in the way we imagined. It's a rewriting field. A quantum cascade anchored to Sol's gravity. Well, it can overwrite targeting matrices, disable Vandal drives, hijack energy cores. A war rewriter, Rourke whispered. No, Idris corrected. It's a truth rewriter. It makes Sol remember that it's ours, and forces the galaxy to acknowledge it. But the AI was not done. Genetic lineage confirmed. Alara Khan, granddaughter of Admiral Khan, civilian memory node 014, E Delta. What is that? Alara asked, but before anyone could answer, the chamber dimmed. And then, she was standing in a field of stars. Not real, a memory space. Projection. And in front of her, her grandmother. Young, whole, smiling. If you're here, Alara, it means we failed. It also means you didn't. Project Firewalk was never just about battle. It was about identity. About making sure that if we fell, we'd fall loud enough for the stars to remember what made us human. The projection reached out. Fingers of light. You're not just carrying our fight. You're carrying our name. So write it across. The sky. The field vanished. And Alara was back in the chamber, breathing hard, jaw clenched. Status of firewalk? She barked. Idris checked the displays. Online, and already sending disruption pulses through Sol's upper band. Vanual. Satellites are blinking out. They'll notice in hours. Let them. She turned to the gathered captains. There weren't many left, but they were the last. We've lit Earth's fire again. This is our line in the stars. Rourke's face was a bruise. His voice was stone. And what happens when the Vanduuls send their godships? They already have, Idris whispered. On cue, warning klaxons echoed through the mountain's crust. A transmission pinged through the atmosphere, forcing every screen to black. Unregistered human activity detected in Sol. Directive OX9 read. Total erasure authorized. The Vanduul had answered. Their dreadship was called Vakora, a world killer. 5 kilometers long. Propulsion via singularity engine. Armor laced with sentient alloys that screamed as they fought. It exited warp behind Luna's ruin like a god returning to a fallen chapel. On the Ashwing, orbiting low over Earth's rusting horizon, the crew stared in silence. Idris spoke first. We can't take that ship head-on. Alara nodded. We won't. She broadcast a fleet-wide message, her face hard with resolve. This is Commander Khan. 30 years ago, they ended Earth, burned it, silenced it. But silence is not surrender. Grief is not defeat. And humans do not fade, we burn. Project Firewalk is active. Sol is ours again. But it needs time to spread its code through the deep grid. So I ask you not for victory, but for 30 minutes. Hold the line. Let them come. And show them what it means to face the last breath of Earth. They formed the gauntlet above the cradle of humanity. 6 ships, cracked hulls, scarred armor. Names of the dead carved into every plate. The Ashwing led the formation, engines blazing, plasma cannons loaded. Below them, the Earth shimmered with rising light as Firewalk's quantum grid reached into orbit, ready to twist physics in defense of its creators. The Vakora loomed in range. Its primary cannon swelled. Its voice, guttural and voidborn, roared across all frequencies. Humanity will be extinguished from this system. And Alara's voice, raw, unflinching, answered. Then, come take it. The sky exploded. Beams lanced between the stars. Human frigates darted between dreadship barrages, weaving patterns of desperation and brilliance. The Ashwing took hit after hit. Systems failing, hull plating fracturing, but never slowed. They moved like ghosts of fire, unpredictable, vicious, remembered. And behind it all, the Firewalk field grew, disrupting Vanduul targeting, scrambling weapons. The Vakora's main cannon misfired. Its drive sputtered. Its AI core screamed confusion. Alara saw it. They were scaring it. They were bending a god. But it wasn't enough. One by one, human ships began to fall. Hammerlight lost life support. Rourke's daggerfall took a beam through the spine. Debris spiraled in all directions. Idris's voice came over the comm weak. We're out of time. Alara gripped the rail. Then, the AI spoke once more. Core disruption field at 87%. If you deliver the beacon, it will complete. She turned to the last escape shuttle. Load the beacon. I'll fly it in myself. Idris grabbed her arm. That's suicide. Alara met his eyes. No fear, no sorrow. Not suicide. Sacrament. The shuttle tore from the Ashwing's breach port, accelerating toward the Vakora-S heart. Weapons fired. Systems screamed. But Firewalk was now everywhere, and for one brief moment, The Vandal missed. The shuttle pierced the dreadships. HULL, carving its way into the core, trailing plasma and memory behind it. Alara activated the beacon and whispered to no one, "This is for Earth." She died before the beacon hit full charge, but by then, it didn't matter. The sky had already changed. The shuttle pierced the Vakora's heart like a thorn of memory driven into a god's flesh. Inside, Commander Alara Khan was dying. The cockpit was half-vented. Fire licked at her legs. Blood streaked her brow. Every breath was pain, but her hands didn't falter on the controls. The beacon thrummed behind her, pulsing with the last code of Project Firewalk, a final scream from a species the galaxy had tried to bury. 82% uploaded. 84%. 87%. The Vakora began to adapt. The dreadship's core AI, sensing intrusion, purged its memory sectors. Defensive code swarmed. Internal turrets activated. Heat levels climbed. A voice came through. Or come, broken by static. Idris. Alara. Come back. You've done enough. Let the beacon self-deliver. No, she croaked. It was always me. Rourke, bleeding, gasping. They'll kill us anyway. Then they kill me seeing our fire. She slammed the shuttle deeper into the vessel's organ metal. Corridors. The interior screamed. Literally. The Vakora's hull was part biocode, grown from war flesh and alloy, and her intrusion felt like infection. Alara tore through its arteries, toward its heart. Outside, chaos raged. The Ashwing was still aloft, engines trailing flame, firing in all directions to cover the beacon's insertion. The other human vessels were in pieces, burning or broken, but none had fled. Not one. Even now, even dying, they held the line. The Vandal dreadship, mighty as it was, had been slowed, and the Firewalk disruption field was now screaming. Across Sol, every dead satellite woke. Every orbital relay, once inert, lit up with Earth code. The stars over Earth began to flicker in synchronized pulses, ancient transmissions repeating. In defiance, humanity persists. This system is claimed. We are not dust. We are legacy. Alara reached the core. A spire of pulsing black and violet, alive and terrible. It beat like a titan's heart. If a heart had ever devoured planets, her shuttle barely held together. She rose, staggering, seared, one leg shattered, and dragged the beacon to the core. 92%. 94%. The ship shuddered. The dreadships. AI focused entirely on her now. Turrets snapped. Pressure changed. The walls moved. Come on, she whispered, eyes glassy with tears. Just a little more. 98%. A blade of living metal erupted from the wall, straight through her stomach. She gasped, blood filling her mouth, but her hands stayed locked to the beacon. 99%. The voice of her grandmother returned. Not the AI. Not memory. Something deeper. Bring back the fire. 100%. Alara Khan smiled. And with the last breath humanity gave her, she activated the core. The Vakora didn't explode. It rewrote. Its systems buckled inward. Core drives fired in reverse. Its internal AI screamed as its logic collapsed, no longer in sync with reality. It tried to calculate, to adapt. But it couldn't. The truth had changed. Sol was human again. From orbit, Idris watched it happen. The dreadship flared with impossible color, hues never meant for mortal eyes. The Firewalk effect spread like fire in oil, cascading across its systems, turning every calculation wrong, every assumption false. And then, silence. The Vakora drifted, powerless. Its lights went out. Then its shell fractured, not by force, but by rejection. The star system it once dominated no longer accepted its presence. A godship died, not in war, but in remembrance. The survivors, what few remained, wept openly. The Ashwings spun silently, hull torn, but alive. Idris stood on the bridge, voice shaking as he transmitted the final message. This is Earth. Command, Soul Stance. Firewalk complete. Commander Khan delivered the signal. The sky remembers her now. Across the galaxy, everything changed. The Vandal withdrew from human sectors, not from fear, but confusion. Their eye cores, infected by the firewalk ripple, began to rewrite perception itself. They no longer saw humans as broken, no longer saw Earth as silent. They saw it burning, and that fire, it spread to enslaved systems, to silenced colonies, to every species that had forgotten the sound of defiance. Because now, there was a story echoing through the stars, not of conquest, but of one dying world that remembered itself and rewrote the heavens. Alara's body was never recovered, but in the heart of the Himalayas, the cradle that once held Firewalk now glows with a soft, rhythmic pulse, a heartbeat that never stopped. And on the walls, etched by surviving crew in silence and salt, she never asked to be a savior, only a voice. She died speaking Earth's name. They thought Earth would mourn quietly. Then the sky turned human. The Vandal didn't sign a treaty. They just stopped coming. In the months after Firewalk, the galaxy waited for retaliation. But none came. The Vakoris wreckage still drifted in high Earth orbit, cracked like a monument, silent as stone. Vandal forces across the Orion sectors ceased movement. No commands, no raids, no harvest fleets. They have not surrendered. But they had paused, as if listening, to something deeper than orders, to something older than fear. Rourke's voice crackled over the Ashwing's battered bridge, now orbiting a healing Earth. His body was scarred, left eye burned blind, but his voice had never been steadier. Sector-wide reports confirm it. They've pulled out of Sol, not a ship left inside the line. Idris stood beside him, fingers moving across flickering screens. They're not confused anymore. They're choosing. Choosing what? Idris looked out at Earth's horizon, blooming again with clouds, wind, and smoke from the forges. To remember us. The humans did not rebuild Earth with steel alone. They built names into the soil. The cradle buried its war dead beneath trees that grew with plasma-rich bark, each branch coated with the DNA of the fallen. Families returned from exile. Terraformers reseeded dead zones. The oceans were wild again. But the heart of the planet, the Firewalk core, remained untouched. It pulsed beneath the crust like a second sun, no longer a weapon. Now, a witness. They gathered at the Ashwing's remains 1 year later. What was left of the crew? Survivors from Daggerfall, Hammerlight, and Emberwake. Rourke led the ceremony. Idris recorded it in legacy code and uploaded it directly into Firewalk's lattice, ensuring it would echo through Sol's stars forever. There was no speech, only silence, and one inscription burned into the whole of the Ashwing. We did not die to be remembered. We remembered to live, far across the void, in a system once. Enslaved, a Vandal elder stood before a silent gathering. He played a human signal on repeat, an ancient Earth frequency, looping a child's voice reciting names over and over. The elder's warriors listened. Then he said, in the rough language of his ancestors, the fire that sings through. Humans, it does not beg, it does not bow, it remembers. We killed their world, and they answered with a story. 10 years later, Firewalk's influence spread beyond humanity. The code, encoded in memory, not empire, became the basis for a new network, not of control, but of truth. They called it the Lattice of Witness. Every system that joined uploaded. One memory, one lost name, one pain never answered, one act of rebellion. The more memories it held, the stronger it became. And through it all, Earth glowed like a torch in the dark. The cradle of memory, the voice of resistance, the species that burned. No monument was built for Alara Khan, but her story was retold 1,000 different ways. In temples, in songs, in whispered prayers on mining stations at the edge of the void. A girl who flew into the heart of a godship, a voice who gave the stars back their courage, a name they couldn't erase. And for every child born under a new sky, the first thing they were taught wasn't math or history or diplomacy. It was a question. What do we do when they forget who we are? And always the same answer came. We remind them. Somewhere in the dark between galaxies, a listening post activated. Its core glowed faintly with firewalk signal. A probe launched, old, rusted, and earth-made. Inside, one message repeated in 1,000 languages. We are still here. We are human. We do not fade. And somewhere even further, beyond the edge of charted space, something answered. Not with words, but with a pulse, a memory, the beginning of another story. And so, they remembered. And so, the stars changed. And so, the sky turned human. The end